Wow. The power's out again. Blackout in Belgorod and Bryansk region, the strikes hit near the thermal power plant. Powerful explosions in occupied Crimea, an oil depot was attacked. A massive fire. From Crimea to the Altai region, the fuel crisis in Russia is getting worse.
This is the kind of gasoline I got at the gas station.
The Council of Europe is already ready to launch a special tribunal against Russia. Ramzan Kadyrov has once again become a hero of the Chechen Republic. A Kazakh gave a tough response to a Russian propagandist over the threat of a new special operation in Kazakhstan. Hello, my name is Katerina Nestorenko, and right now, here are the top stories. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other on YouTube. Do you remember President Zelensky's words about Russia's strikes on our energy infrastructure?
If they threaten a blackout, for example, in the capital of Ukraine, then the Kremlin should know there will be a blackout in the capital of Russia.
Belgorod is the capital of Russia.
The whole city went dark.
The first one down. Not the capital yet, but just as spectacular. This is Belgorod, and it was left without power. Zalini, whoa! The power's out again. Our guys hit near the Luch station.
Damage to the power supply in the municipal area. Almost 40,000 people as of now, as of this minute, are without electricity. But the guys are always on a mission.
A thermal power plant on fire in Bryansk region, city of Klintsy. No heat in apartments. And in Feodosia, an oil depot was on fire.
And it's burning again nearby. It's burning.
This is the largest oil depot in the occupied Crimea. It had already been attacked before. After the previous strikes, only 22 out of 34 tanks remained intact. Or maybe even fewer now. There will definitely be less gasoline there now. And something also hit a military facility between Yevpatoria and the village of Uyuinaya. One of the radars was damaged. In response to the attacks on Chernihiv, Lviv, Sumy and other cities, the Ukrainian 14th Regiment struck back at a Russian plant in Dzerzhinsk. A strike hit the Sverdlov strategic plant, which is one of the largest producers of industrial explosives in Russia. They manufacture charges there for artillery, aviation and aerial bombs. And of course, how could we go without mentioning the Culver plan that was implemented in Sochi? There, more than 24 planes were circling above the airport. Unfortunately, all of them are intact. Drones reached as far as the Moscow region. There, they tried to shoot them down as they approached the city. But after all, the air defense is only there. In general, as the Russian Ministry of Murders claims, they shot down 251 drones over their own territory. But for some reason, they don't specify how many they failed to shoot down. According to the publication Behind the Icons, Ukraine has started using FP-5 Fleming missiles for strikes on Russia's energy facilities. Let me remind you, it has a range of 3,000 kilometers and a warhead weighing 1,150 kilograms.
If the FP-5 proves capable of penetrating Russian air defense systems, it will take the Ukrainian company Deep Strike to a new level of destructiveness. The missile's flight range allows it to evade defenses by constantly changing its vectors toward the target.
They are cheaper than Tomahawks, can fly longer distances and carry a heavier payload. I can't help but admire the Ukrainian soldiers. They are holding the front line with resilience and delivering successful strikes on the enemy's critically important military targets. Let's support our defenders. If you can't help financially, leave them words of support in the comments. They see it and it will make them feel good. Ukraine is scorching Russia with hellfire. The fuel crisis is intensifying. As The Economist reports, targeted strikes on Russian oil refineries are worsening the fuel crisis in the aggressor state. And they support, the opinion of US President Donald Trump regarding Ukraine's prospects in the war. Ukrainian drone attacks began in August, and the number of strikes has increased from 2 to 3 per week to 4 to 5. Soon they are likely to become a daily occurrence. According to the publication, up to 40% of Russia's oil refining capacity has been affected. Moreover, about 20% was reduced at the same time. According to the research group Energy Aspect, this means a loss of more than 1 million barrels per day.
In the past week or so, Ukraine has seriously damaged a major oil export terminal in Novorossiysk on the Black Sea. It also struck an oil refining complex in Bashkortostan, more than 1,300 kilometers from Ukraine, and a pumping station in Chuvashia, thousands of kilometers away. The major oil refinery in Verkhnyaya Salda was attacked on September 1st, but the Russians claim it was a technical malfunction, not a drone attack.
Meanwhile, the gasoline crisis is intensifying in the temporarily occupied Crimea. Media reports say that drivers are creating groups on social networks to share locations where fuel is available for sale. And they are outraged about the quality of what they're being offered to fill up their cars with. In addition, locals are filming videos and showing the very gasoline they've managed to get their hands on.
This is the kind of gasoline I got at the gas station. The fuel pump died, the filter is proper, but it's clogged. This is already filtered, it's clean now. Well, you can see the color for yourself. So be careful. Can you see it? Here it is with them where I'm pumping it out from. You won't believe what's happened to the gas tank.
And that's not all. The gasoline shortage in the country has even reached the Altai Krai. Some gas stations in Bisk have already closed down. At the gas stations that remain open, huge lines of cars have formed. Mostly only diesel fuel is still available, while 92 and 95 octane gasoline have disappeared from the Koil and OPT stations. Fuel prices have skyrocketed. Well, what can I say? I definitely like this kind of news. Like, if you agree. And now to news from the front. For the first time, Russians have struck Kramatorsk with a drone using fiber optics. The drone was headed for a vehicle belonging to military personnel from the armed forces of Ukraine, but thankfully no one was in the car at the time of the attack. The reality is that Russian drones are now reaching places where it once seemed impossible. But it's encouraging that the daily losses of Russian occupiers in Donbass remain extremely high. However, there is still no decrease in enemy activity either. As Danil Borisenko, the head of intelligence of the Anti-Aircraft Missile and Artillery Battalion of the National Guard Brigade Rubesh explained, there is currently hope that Russian attacks will decrease as weather conditions worsen.
They keep moving and attacking, and what could stop them in the near future is most likely the deterioration of the weather conditions. But for now, as long as the weather is good, they will continue trying to consolidate their local gains despite their losses. Their losses, in fact, are enormous. If you look at it, out of 100 occupiers they send to our positions every day, maybe about 5 to 10 make it to the point where they break through the line of contact and then hide further in the tree lines, but even that doesn't stop them.
Meanwhile, special forces fighters from the main intelligence directorate showed how they destroyed enemy infantry and their positions in the Zaporizhzhia and Lyman directions. The occupiers wrap themselves in camouflage to move across the clearings. Although this makes the process more difficult, it doesn't stop it. The partisans of the ATS in the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson directions are also adding fuel to the fire. Their successful actions have paralyzed the supply of military cargo for the occupiers. A sabotage operation took place on the railway near Verkhny-Tokmak. Traffic on this section is temporarily blocked. Delayed deliveries of equipment, ammunition, fuel, and Russian personnel to the front. And our drones instantly punish the occupiers, looters. In Vselenovaya, Donetsk region, a Russian soldier stole food from a pensioner. A Ukrainian drone tracked him to his shelter and punished the criminal with a precise strike. A detailed situation on the front is in our military review.
The Russians on the front are opening a new direction for their offensive. This concerns the south of Ukraine, specifically the Zaporizhzhia sector. So, near Stepnohirsk, in the area of the settlement of Stepnoe, the enemy has been conducting active assault operations for the past several days. The occupiers are also trying to send their so-called observers to the Dnipro Islands located in the gray zone. Fortunately, all of the enemy's attempts to gain a foothold and deliver ammunition across the river end the same way. For example, the unmanned systems unit of the 15th Operational Brigade, Karadak, has thwarted more than one such attempt. Those few who do manage to cross the river are already being awaited on land by Ukrainian drones. Overall, in the southern operational zone, the enemy is striking with guided aerial bombs and unguided rockets and is constantly increasing the use of kamikaze drones. Additionally, over the past few days, due to worsening weather conditions, the occupiers have increased the number of artillery shellings. In those same areas where the occupiers can reach with drones, all the fields and tree lines are strewn with fiber optic cables. This, for example, is what the Pokrovsky direction looks like today. The entire surrounding area is completely covered with numerous fiber optic cables, and each individual one is directly connected to a deadly FPV drone. But despite all this, our soldiers keep working and are carrying out a real hunt for the occupiers. Our drone operators find the enemy everywhere, in buildings, tree lines and shelters, then give a warm welcome to enemy infantry and equipment. Despite all the Russians' efforts, our soldiers managed to achieve success in certain sections of the front. For example, in the Donetsk region, the Ukrainian armed forces stopped the occupiers' advance in one of the directions, stabilized the situation, and are eliminating the remaining saboteurs. In particular, the defense forces have stabilized the situation in Yampol in Donetsk region and are clearing the area of sabotage groups.
A unit of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces and the National Guard are conducting strike and search operations in the settlement itself to identify and eliminate the remaining enemy sabotage groups.
Syrskyi also shared details about the Ukrainian offensive near Dobropilya. There, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to accurately strike several enemy concentrations and partially destroy the occupiers' logistics chain. In certain areas, Ukrainian drone pilots are effectively creating death roads for the enemy. For example, our UAVs caught up with 2 Russian vans, 6 trucks, and at least 2 armored combat vehicles. The occupiers' losses in this direction over the past day amount to 47 personnel. Of these, 32 are irrecoverable losses. Since the start of the counter-offensive operation in the Dobropilya direction, the Russians have lost about 3,520 personnel. Of these, at least 2,000 will return home in coffins. However, despite heavy losses on all fronts, Russian generals show no intention of stopping local assaults. On the contrary, together with Putin, they seem to be deliberately trying to send as many Russian contract soldiers to their deaths as possible. For example, the Russians advanced in the Kharkiv region toward 8 settlements at once, according to reports from the Ukrainian General Staff. According to the military, over the past day, Ukrainian forces repelled 12 attacks in the southern Slobodansky direction. And these shots are already from the area near the settlement of Kotlarovka. As we can see, the Russian helicopter failed to evade the Ukrainian FPV drone. And although the incident itself happened the day before, Russian media have only now published the video of the enemy bird being shot down. On the Lyman front, while the enemy launched as many as 12 attacks trying to advance near the settlements of Karpivka and Rekivka, fighters from the 3rd Army Corps broke through the occupiers' positions and got behind enemy lines. As a result, the Ukrainian exchange fund was replenished with a couple of new Russian prisoners.
You won't kill me! You won't kill me! I promise I won't kill you! Come out! Throw out your weapon! Come out! If you surrender, you'll go home. Idiot! Come out! However,
not every occupier is lucky enough to be taken prisoner. Thus, our reconnaissance drones captured the moment when 2 Russian soldiers in the Sumy region surrendered to a paratrooper from the 30th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade. When their fellow countrymen learned about the Russians' attempt to surrender to the Ukrainian armed forces, they decided that Russians do not surrender. And instead of trying to call for their comrades, they simply eliminated their own from a drone. At that moment, our soldier was just escorting the prisoners to the evacuation point. Fortunately, as a result of the Russian drone drops, unlike the occupiers themselves, he was not harmed.
In Europe, large-scale preparations are underway to establish a special tribunal for the crime of Russian aggression against Ukraine. This was stated by the organization's Secretary General Alan Bercy. He recalled that an important step was taken on June 25th, when Volodymyr Zelensky signed a bilateral agreement with Strasbourg on the establishment of the tribunal. Currently, legal instruments, infrastructure and personnel are being formed. At the same time, the launch of the process depends on the support of member states, which must join and actively participate.
This part of the equation is not in our hands. We present arguments. We call on both member and non-member states to join us. And this can be launched as soon as states actively join in this direction, with a budget and also with the ratification of the expanded partial agreement which will allow states to join. This is exactly what needs to happen now. On our side, we are ready. We can start immediately, but we need support.
We urge all states not to stand aside. International support is needed to launch the special tribunal. Russia is a terrorist state, and it must definitely be held accountable for the crime committed. Evil must be punished.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Meanwhile, we have a new dove of peace with his own vision of how the war should be ended. And that's the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, who is dancing to the Kremlin's tune. In an interview, he stated that he does not support the European Union's approach to resolving the Russia-Ukraine war. He says that the war could have ended just 3 months after it began.
The goal of the current Slovak government's foreign policy is not the defeat of the Russian Federation. Our goal is to end the war as quickly as possible so that Slavs stop killing each other. The war could have ended 3 months after it began.
In his opinion, the EU is doing everything wrong. Moreover, allegedly, they are already trying to drag Slovakia into the war, and he noted that Europeans should spend as much energy on peace as they do on supporting the war in Ukraine. He did not specify exactly what should be done, but he clearly implied that Mr. Fico has issues with critical thinking. Russia is testing Europe's resilience with hybrid operations, but Europe needs to find the political will to continue and strengthen its support for Ukraine. Former head of Finnish military intelligence, retired general and member of the European Parliament Pekka Toveri spoke about this in an interview with the Espresso TV channel. Additionally, the general commented on the incidents involving drones on the territory of the European Union. He noted that Russia, which is behind these incidents, threatens Europe in several ways. It creates a military threat while simultaneously conducting hybrid operations.
Its main goal is to undermine the unity of NATO and the EU. because it is precisely these organizations that prevent Russia from seizing Ukraine and advancing further into Europe. That is why it attacks using all available means. I don't think we should wait for the Americans to take action.
According to General Toveri, global tensions are extremely high, especially after the US and other Western countries demonstrated weakness. And dictators can take advantage of this.
Dictatorships like Russia and China see this as an opportunity to take whatever they please.
What do you think the Russian Federation is really planning? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll definitely read them. And now listen up. Russian propagandist Vladimir Solovyov suddenly started talking about problems in the Russian economy. Well, honestly, it's not surprising. Because of the sanctions, Russia's economy really is falling apart at the seams. It seems the Kremlin has to cut spending not only on school repairs, but also on salaries for propagandists. Otherwise, why would Solovyov be so worried about Russia's economic future? Because
they read everything that's happening in our economy over there, you know? And they say, oh, look, Russia was growing at 4%. It was growing. But now, yes. And now you see, right? And they quote directly.
Besides that, they know how many of our companies have gone bankrupt. Vladimir Doshevna, they know everything. They control everything. They know everything.
Because at many levels of power, their agents are still sitting there. Right now in America, they're writing that their agents at a high level, a mole, reported to British intelligence. And the king, the British king, handed over a note explaining to Trump that next year Russia will collapse economically and then they'll be able to finish us off.
We found that mole.
We figured out the economy. What do I care who the mole is? There are people whose job it is to catch them. I think the most important thing is to keep our economy in good shape, so the West has no illusions that we might have problems.
I'll tell you for sure, you're getting too relaxed. This is just the beginning. Kazakhstan is pushing back against Russian influence. The host of Solovyov Live, Sergei Mardan, wrote a post in which he accused Kazakhs of being involved in the strikes on Russian oil refineries and added, where will the new special military operation begin, in Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan? That post quickly disappeared as if it never existed, but everything has been documented. And now Kazakhstan has already given him a worthy response.
I have a question. Did you maybe lose your sense of boundaries there? Who would even allow you to carry out a sweep on Kazakh soil? And in general, who would let you do anything in Kazakhstan, a sovereign and independent country? That's the first point. Second point. If your air defense is useless, what do my Kazakhs have to do with it? You yourselves failed to keep an eye on the Ukrainian drones. That's the second point. Third point. I'm still curious. They started this war against Ukraine themselves. Now they can't finish it. We all remember the words like Kyiv in 3 days. How many days have passed? Can anyone tell me? If you can't end this war yourselves, why are you dragging others into it? Why are you dragging us in? And most importantly, he wrote that now he supposedly thinks about where the next special military operation will be, Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan, or maybe the other way around. Listen, you can't handle little Ukraine, whose people have the heart of a lion. How do you expect to deal with the Turkic peoples? If you come here wherever you go, even if God lets you, you'll leave empty-handed.
At the same time, the Russian Orthodox Church still controls local orthodoxy and actively promotes the ideas of the Russian world. The FSB agent Patriarch Kirill comes as an honored guest and receives the highest awards. And opponents are persecuted for their attempts to create a church independent from Moscow. Turorbek Kusainov, a former imam and leader of the Demo Union, became one of the most prominent fighters against the monopoly of the Russian Orthodox Church. He called for Patriarch Kirill to be banned from entering Kazakhstan. He sent letters with believers' signatures to the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople in Istanbul and pushed for a petition against the war in Ukraine. I know we have many viewers in Kazakhstan. Share your opinion in the comments. Why does the Kazakh government still turn a blind eye to the Kremlin's influence through religion? And what are the chances for the Orthodox Church in Kazakhstan to gain autocephaly? Russia continues to kill, and now we're not talking about missiles and drones, but about culture. Due to their refusal to perform Tchaikovsky's works, the Ukrainian ensemble United Ukraine in Belgorod ceased to exist. The ensemble was formed from refugee workers. The troupe was created in the first month of the full-scale war and performed on prestigious stages in the USA and Australia. As the ballet dancer says, they do not want to support Russia. Not in life, not on stage.
I am not going to help Russian propaganda tell stories about their great culture, which in reality is not that great. For decades, Russia has been building up its propaganda abroad, and this image of culture that they brought to Europe, people believe in it. But I don't want to support that image.
All over the world, as ballet dancers say, there is a huge demand and many offers for Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. One could have made good money from this, but Ukrainians refuse such fame. That's why the project was shut down. It was decided to establish a new troupe in the Netherlands to celebrate Ukrainian culture. The newly established Ukrainian International Ballet tells Ukrainian stories. Moreover, a veteran was invited to the stage. Especially
after the first performances, I felt quite heavy at heart. In fact, for a while, she fell into a rather deep depression for several months. But with each new performance, it helped me become stronger. And to overcome it. The performance is like a session with a psychologist as well.
Ukrainian culture continues to conquer major stages, which makes me very happy. If you are currently abroad, buy tickets to the performances. Support Ukrainian art. We are only waiting for Swan Lake in one case, on Russian television screens, on the day when Putin finally passes away. Ramzan Kadyrov has become a hero of the Chechen Republic. On October 5th, Kadyrov turned 49 years old. To mark this day, Prime Minister Magomed Daudov presented him with an award during the grand opening of the new government complex in Grozny.
For many years of dedicated state and public service aimed at the prosperity and enhancement of the socio-economic potential of the Chechen Republic, the highest title of Hero of the Chechen Republic is awarded, along with the Golden Star Medal.
Let me remind you that Kadyrov received his first Hero of the Chechen Republic order on February 24, 2023. Meanwhile, a loud conflict has erupted within Kremlin circles. This time, Ramzan Kadyrov has clashed with General Shamanov, known for his role in the Chechen wars. Mutual accusations and open insults have been exchanged. Next, we will explain what triggered this and what the new confrontation among the so-called Russian elites might lead to.
These are originally Russian lands, so hands off Russian history. A new absurdity is unfolding in the Russian State Duma. One of the former generals, now a member of parliament, Vladimir Shamanov, has forbidden Chechens from renaming Chechen settlements. Because as it turns out, this is a matter of memory for Russia.
The parliament of the Chechen Republic is currently proposing to officially rename several Cossack stanitsas, which have long possessed their own distinct and historical names. Not only did you drive out the Russian-speaking population from there at the very beginning, now you're erasing the names as well. This is the history of our state. What are you doing?
The intrigue was heightened by the fact that for a whole 5 days, this stunt by the retired general went unanswered, both by Kadyrov himself and his followers. And that's considering their hot-tempered Caucasian nature.
Here, what is truly important is not merely what Shamanov actually said, but rather how Shamanov precisely articulated it. It's this manner in which Shamanov quite literally went on the offensive. And he went after everyone, starting with Kadyrov and ending with any of Kadyrov's propagandists.
However, after almost a week, the head of Chechnya finally mustered up the courage and addressed his people.
He was the most brutal towards the Chechen people, the general who took men out into the field and executed them, Kadyrov stated. In his Telegram post, he also suggested that Shamanov should go fight in the war in Ukraine.
Interestingly, the address to the Russian general was, for some reason, delivered in the Chechen language. Analysts believe that the statement was intended for a domestic audience, meaning it was not a response to Moscow, but rather purely reassuring words for the Chechens so as not to anger anyone, God forbid.
In no way in this matter, in this confrontation, will the Russian Federation side with Kadyrov, especially in this situation. In my considered opinion, what Kadyrov has said, especially since he deliberately said it in the Chechen language, is clearly an attempt to gain more widespread supporters at this truly critical moment, even if he was indeed a villain, even if he personally killed and actively took part in all the horrific atrocities that have happened in the territory of the Chechen Republic. Recently, he has noticeably changed, and moreover, he has started calling things by their proper and accurate names.
It's worth mentioning here who Vladimir Shamanov is, a Russian general, former commander of the airborne forces, and he participated in both Chechen campaigns. It was with him, when Kadyrov was a teenager, that he fought. At the same time, Shamanov is noted as an extremely tough and ruthless commander.
Why would I need you for 100 years? I don't need you for 100 years!
But here's what they remember in Chechnya, December 1999, in the village of Ankanyurt. Federal troops under his command enter the settlement. After the battle, real reprisals begin. Civilians are killed, there are rapes and looting. February 2000, Katyryurt. The European Court of Human Rights recognized that the operation, which involved the massive use of indiscriminate weapons, killed civilians and violated the right to life. The court pointed to the responsibility of the command. That command was Shamanov. The day after Katyryurt in Novye Aldi, a sweep operation. Hundreds were executed without trial. And when Colonel Budanov kidnapped and killed 18-year-old Elza Kungaeva, General Shamanov did not side with the law. He defended the murderer, called him the best commander, and demanded that the image of the Russian officer not be tarnished.
Yes, he fights quite toughly, but certainly not cruelly, just toughly, you see.
At the same time, after years of faithfully serving the Kremlin, Kadyrov apparently still hasn't forgotten all of Shamanov's exploits in those wars, hence his reaction.
In fact, the tribunal is actually holding him directly accountable for carrying out that specific service.
As for the essence of the conflict around the renaming, there is no more inherently Russian about the renamed stanitsas than there is in Transnistria or Abkhazia. It's just as much a foreign region, one that Russians once also took by force.
In reality, the history of these stanitsas is such that back during the Caucasian War and the expansion into the Caucasus, Chechen villages were destroyed and Cossack stanitsas were established in their place as fortifications. And of course, they were given Cossack, Russian names. These names, Shelkovskaya, Senovodskaya, Anaurskaya, are exactly the names that were given by the conquerors.
Well, you can't stop the Kaimlevskaya brethren anymore. In disputes between Russians and Chechens there, they typically don't side with whoever is right, but with whoever is closer to them ethnically. As a result, Z-bots have already flooded Runit, scrambling to respond to Kadyrov.
It's very convenient, living in extreme luxury, to send someone else off to war. So the pertinent question arises, why is it that Ramzan Kadyrov himself, along with all of his loyal and dedicated fighters, has consistently remained in deep reserve for such an extraordinarily long period of time, merely engaging in target practice at the training range, rather than actively participating in the conflict?
Analysts say it's possible that Chechens may soon have to shoot not just at training grounds. There's a risk this could escalate into a third Chechen war. After all, the story with the renamings is a clear signal that the region wants to live by its own rules. And there's not much left before the question of separating from the Russian Federation arises. And it's clear that this process won't be a peaceful one. So,
what do you think of our news? Write to us about what we should change to become better. We will definitely take your feedback into account. In the meantime, please like this video to support what we do, and be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss future episodes. See you soon!